I'd like to introduce Mark Rosler, Chief of Staff to the government, and Sarah Teely, the Clerk of the Executive Council.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson Braden Jones, Chief of Staff.
As previously stated, in accordance with Sub-Rule 7816, during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. And so, just want to remind the Premier of a note that I sent him that I'm writing in response to your letter to Premier Canoe. This is from one of his staffers. Pipeline shut down, and I can assure you that the Manitoba government is closely monitoring this situation and is working with Imperial Oil to restore pipeline services quickly and safely. At this time, repairs to the pipeline are well underway and proceeding smoothly. We will continue to work with Imperial Oil and other fuel companies to ensure adequate fuel supply for all Manitobans. That's from his staff. So I'm asking the Premier, how is he doing that?
The Honourable Premier.
We're doing that by convening regular meetings with industry, suppliers, across departments of government, and keeping Manitobans informed. Very grateful to everybody who's been collaborating quite well on this. What could have been a very, very serious threat to the economy has been instead a testament to what can happen for the good of Manitobans when we work together. However, I have to say, I have never seen an opposition try to filibuster and delay estimates the way the Leader of the Opposition is today. More than an hour late for estimates, wasting time, filibustering. What is going on? I have a strange impression of what is trying to be accomplished here in estimates. The Leader himself fails to have discipline in his caucus. He has 4 of his MLAs break rank, including the former Premier of Manitoba. And then he has to hide for more than an hour before he comes to estimates. Estimates is supposed to be opposition time, and he can't avail himself of the opportunity to bring forward questions of government. It's a far cry from the strong opposition that we served, the people of Manitoba. And of course, we are an excellent government, far better than the PCs were, particularly towards the end of their days. But as we sit here, we have to recognize that when we want to talk pipelines in the current context, there's a pipeline of hatred from the PC caucus room into the opposition benches. And the member opposite had a responsibility. He had a responsibility to the people of Manitoba to ensure that those hateful views that he might hear expressed around the table would not be expressed in this chamber. He was unable to do so. I don't know what happens in a room like that where either there's not voices around the table listening to him, or they're just disregarding his counsel, his direction. Perhaps there was no attempt on his part to try to bring these unreasonable voices to reason, or perhaps he was simply incapable of making the argument. But in that case, where the Leader is unable to heal the divisions within a split caucus, then it falls to other members around the table. It was really something the other day when we saw the caretaker convention being violated, and again, the member opposite had to work himself up to make his way into estimates time, and he surrounded himself with a circle of courage, and he had all the little MLAs from the caucus sitting around him to try and bolster his confidence. What we see now today, the circle of courage is dwindling. There's only a couple people willing to sit with him in the chamber today. But to those members, where were their voices? Member from Brandon West knows it would be the decent thing to do, to not vote against trans recognition. Presumably the member for Agassiz knows the same thing. Why were those voices silent or unheard or unarticulated in caucus on the PC side of things? This is Pride Week. We're heading into the Pride Parade here in a few days in Winnipeg. The thing that concerns me most about the conduct we witnessed on the other side of the aisle today is that the PCs knew exactly what they were doing. We're a few days before Pride weekend. 4 members broke rank to vote against, recognizing just something very basic in the form of human rights and dignity for trans people and two-spirit people. But the fact that the other members come into the chamber, the fact that they sit in the caucus room with those MLAs, it shows that they want to send a message. And that is very, very unfortunate and very shameful. Convince the unreasonable voices around your table to sit this one out. That's what you should have done. You failed. That reflects very poorly. I can say for those 4 members, they are never going to serve in the executive council in this province. And the more that this sort of behavior is tolerated amongst the PC caucus, the lower and lower the probability that any of those MLAs will ever serve in the provincial cabinet becomes. So again, I look forward to the member opposite who's decided after more than an hour to come to Committee of Supply today. Let's see, is he going to filibuster all afternoon again? Is he going to take the full 5 minutes of every question? Or is he going to be in duck and cover mode, as he's been hiding all afternoon to date?
The Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. It looks like, Honourable Chairperson, much like the Honourable Speaker, you're going to have your work cut out for you. Because it looks like the Premier is all in, back to some of his original roots as far as bullying tactics. He's not going to be able to sit there and bully me. I sit here today, and people can check the various recordings in Hansard and the live stream. The only one dodging estimates and deflecting is the Premier himself. I was sitting in here waiting for him. The lack of any answers to Manitobans speaks loudly from this Premier. And he comes in, starts throwing around innuendos and various different allegations, and he doesn't want to answer any questions. And so again, how is he actually going to deal with adequate fuel supply? So what do we look at? We had questions today in question period. Nope. What does the Premier want to do? He comes in, puffs out his chest this afternoon. Everyone. And again, to Manitobans and to media, I invite you to come in, sit in the press gallery, and watch the show when he is not on camera. He is more showman than statesman. He continues to do that today. He's trying to come in here and bully not only me, but my colleagues. We gave a free vote on a bill. We value our members' voices, the ability to vote with their conscience and their constituents. And if the media would have been in the press gallery, he would have seen the bullying nature of the Premier. He's going back to his roots. This is nothing new with you-know-who, the MLA for Fort Rouge. I've dealt with students in the past that have had behavior issues, and I've worked with them quite closely. The Premier, when he decided to sign up for this job, you can't help others if you have not helped yourself. And so we know that the Premier is self-serving. We know that he can't help himself. We know that he's uncomfortable. It's unfortunate that he has to go to some bullying techniques that he tried to do a few minutes ago and talk about various weak and, he's got to whip people in line just like he's done his caucus. Because what did he say at the end of question period today? He said something along the lines, and I'll get it for the next time we have the opportunity for estimates. But he said that if anybody disagrees with him, they will have to deal with him and there will be consequences. The people that are surrounding him today, his MLAs, and I'm not begrudging and belittling any of his MLAs, because that's not who I am. But I'm giving a warning to all of you, a bit of a caution. What he did to Greg Selinger, what he's done to other people, he will do to you. Because you've seen the behavior, you've seen it in your own caucus. You've seen it in your own caucus. Now the Premier, just so you can sort of look into your notes that your staff are going to give you, Manitoba has never entered into a contract with WEX. And this Premier decided to go and give $98 million. Can you explain that?
Honorable Premier.
A split caucus. What an abject failure of leadership. When's the last time a split caucus happened? Didn't end well for any leader who oversaw that. The member opposite is the fourth PC leader that I've sat across the aisle from. He won't be the last. But a split caucus, not a great legacy, I would say. And again, on an issue of human rights. Member for Brandon West comes from a community where issues like this proved very divisive. But as I've said in this chamber before, I'm very proud of the people of Brandon for coming together and sending a message that they support young people, people of all ages, who are part of the LGBTQ communities. Member for La Verendrye, one of the rebel PC caucus members, went out into the scrum and said, and I quote, "I'm not against the LGBT community," end quote. It's a bizarre thing to have to assert. It reminds me a lot of when the member opposite says that he's not intimidated. He's not scared. What are you even talking about? Who's even asking about intimidation or being scared? It's the sort of assertion that comes from somebody who has something either to prove or something to cover up. And so again, with La Verendrye's MLA, the person who voted against our colleague Logan Oxenham's bill, or rather, sorry, I withdraw that, our MLA for Kirkfield Park's bill earlier today, it really does seem that there is a serious issue here that needs to be addressed on the PC benches. The member opposite has shown himself incapable of addressing those issues. A split caucus on a question of human rights in the days leading up to Pride. I'm not sure what the member opposite's ambitions were in politics, but this can't have been it. This can't have been it. What were some of his first comments on the record after becoming leader of the opposition? Well, he told the Globe and Mail that he wanted to double down on the transphobic, queerphobic rhetoric that the PCs were defeated on in last year's election campaign. So it seems that his time since being named to the leadership post, to his time entering the spring break from sitting here at the legislature, is bookended. Some might say he's being dogged by his inability to show leadership on a question of human rights. There are young kids in schools across Manitoba for whom safety is an important question. Mental health is an important consideration. The PC party put their own internal deliberations and their own interests ahead of those children today. And what was the great consensus, the great solve that they arrived at the end of them arguing amongst themselves over their own interests? People from probably ridings like Roblin and Brandon West on the one hand saying we need to be able to show we're allies with the LGBTQ communities, and the people from Springfield, Rachat, La Verendrye, Steinbach and Borderland saying there's no way that we can vote to respect human rights of trans and two-spirit people in the days leading up to Pride. Those are the moments when leadership is required, when a consensus must be arrived at and built. And that didn't happen. And so what was the great solve? The great solve was, well, we'll go out there with a split caucus and we'll just survive the day of terrible media on having MLAs break rank. It's not how I would have handled things, but again, the members opposite are seriously lacking in leadership. There needs to be some reckoning on the PC benches. Pride Week, Pride Month that we're heading into, of all times of year, to say that, you know what, we're turning the page. And for all those members who are here today and just, going along with it and hoping to say when they get back to their constituencies, well, I was on the right side of things. No. These are where the measures of your career as MLAs are being taken. Today you failed.
The member's time has expired. Leader of the official opposition.
Honorable Chairperson, once again, deflecting, dodging, denying. This is who he is. Manitobans, you're seeing this loud and clear today yet again. Been many weeks of no answers coming from this Premier. Anything that's important to Manitobans, he wants to shy away from. And he tries to intimidate. He tries to, and I know, the Premier's smiling and laughing and nodding his head to it. And I know once again that his favorite sport is wrestling. And he really enjoys that and intimidation. We are not going to be intimidated by this Premier. And Manitobans should be worried. And let me put something else on the record in regards to the Premier. The amount of disinformation that he puts on the record on a day-to-day basis in these chambers is a ton, to use a quote from the Premier. Because sometimes he just doesn't have the right grasp on some vocabulary that he'd like to use. He's nervous. He gets worried. He knows that his government is failing Manitobans on so many different files. He's going to take whatever he can and try to flip it around so he doesn't have to answer any questions. He can dodge the questions. We talk about the fact that he cut out of province surgeries, leaving patients waiting for longer, in pain. We saw evidence of people today who have had successful surgeries, but no, this Premier is stuck in his ideology. He's self-serving, and we've seen that for years, actually. And then when he talks about leadership, and I ask the NDP caucus, some of the members that are here today, are you okay mentioning something offside with your leader? Because he will, as he said today, you disagree with him, he's going to take it into his own hands. You will have to answer to him, and there will be consequences. He did that more than once. And we've seen that in his past too. People who have disagreed with the Premier, there's been consequences for them. Some, unfortunately, to the point where there's been some hospitalization. That's not a good record. And he continues today to put misinformation about myself and some of my colleagues on the record. That is not becoming of a Premier. Answer some questions. Premier, MLA for Fort Rouge. Many businesses in your constituency have closed under your watch. We've lost opportunities economically here in this province because of you. No, it's because of you. And so It's unfortunate that this Premier continues. And so back to the questions about fuel. We tried to ask very serious questions today. And
Order.
Right now, just so people
Order.
are watching.
Order. I'll just remind all members to direct your comments to the chair. Thank you. Merci. The leader of the official opposition.
So going on questions.
Yes.
My
the
time.
Leader of the official opposition.
So thank you. So Honorable Chairperson, it's unfortunate. And again, if the media were in the media gallery, they would have just witnessed the Premier bully the chairperson to go with what he was saying. It's unfortunate, but this is who is leading our province. And I'm not going to let this continue. Manitobans shouldn't let this continue. Your behavior as a Premier unbecoming. Honorable Chairperson, the Premier's attitude and behavior is unbecoming of a Premier. So the question to the Premier, hopefully he'll answer this one, because this will be his last opportunity to answer a question of mine today. The last fuel contract awarded to Suncor was $7 million in 2020. Why did Manitoba buy $45 million worth of fuel in April while pipeline was shut down?
Order. So once again, I'd like to remind all members to direct their comments directly to the chair and through the chair, and refrain from using terms as you or you are, and direct your comments through the chair, please. Merci. The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The issue that the PCs are trying to use to distract from their split caucus regarding fuel procurement in the province uses the same vendors as under the former government, though we're estimating a $13.7 million savings compared to what they paid over a 5-year period. I gotta say, estimates is supposed to be opposition time. The leader of the opposition shows up an hour late and he taps out after 3 questions. What a failure of leadership. Again, he's not in his chair, he can't raise a point of order. Again, quitting after 3 questions, after being an hour late, on the same day that the leader of the opposition, I withdraw the comment about him not being in his chair, but I say a reformulated assertion that yielding time in estimates after merely 3 questions, after forcing the committee to wait more than an hour, shows a remarkable lack of leadership. It's the same kind of lack of leadership that we saw from the member for Springfield, Rashad, who votes against a bill and then can't go face the media. It's the same lack of leadership we saw from the PC caucus. What is going on in this estimates committee? Where is the official opposition? The PCs were sent here to do a job. This is PC time here in estimates. Again, I'll happily entertain questions from the member for Tyndall Park. She brings forward some important constituency priorities. But I think the issues with the PCs go much deeper than a split caucus. Again, the time being yielded in estimates by the leader of the opposition, when is the last time that happened? Certainly never happened while we were in opposition. We're better opposition, better government than the PCs, that much is clear. But even if the PCs aren't going to be on a level with us, should they at least be comparable to what other PC oppositions have been in the past? When is the last time that there was a split caucus amongst progressive conservatives in Manitoba? When is the last time a progressive conservative opposition was unable to ask questions of an NDP premier? Again, my friend from Lac de Bonnie talks about misinformation. Well, hey, table the article from the Globe and Mail in which he says he wants to put, and I quote, an exclamation mark, end quote, on the parental rights issue. That's what he articulated earlier this year. I'd say he put quite the exclamation mark on it here today, with the help of a former premier and the member for Verendrye, the member for Springfield Rashad, and the member for Borderlands. Hello, I say to each of them. What a remarkable exclamation point. The rough part for me, though, is that once again, just like in the election last year, the PCs kick up all this dust. They know exactly what they're doing, very, very cynical, and then they're going to walk away. And it's not them that have to contend with it. It's the young person in the community that has to contend with it. So again, come on over. People of conscience. People who want to be on the side of young people in the province. People who think that being an ally to the LGBTQ community is a good thing. Come on over. We also have a functioning caucus, a functioning leadership structure, the ability to articulate views and then form a consensus and go out in public and make the case to Manitobans about why we're taking action. PCs might claim to be a functioning political entity, but when you see this disaster of a performance that we witnessed here today, I don't think any reasonable person can entertain the thought that they are a functioning political process. So maybe they'll go out and campaign in tuxedo tonight or work the phones or whatever and try to get their minds off of a disastrous performance by their leader and an abject failure of them to function as a caucus. When they look at the 4 MLAs who broke rank, they got to be wondering how much longer, right? How much longer are they going to have to entertain this sort of nonsense? And again, happy to continue engaging in these questions because there's a fundamental issue of respect for human rights at stake here. And yes, we will call it out every single time. And yes, it's important that when the PCs think that they can use a wedge issue to target marginalized or vulnerable people in the community, that other folks who do have some purchase and power to speak will speak out, and that's us.
Before we continue, and just for clarification, I'd like to remind everybody that we avoid mentioning the absence of any member, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Premier for retracting some of his earlier comments. I'd like to recognize the Honourable Member for, or just the member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. And we're limited on time here, so I just want to dive right into the questions. A few months ago, I was able to bring